Okay, good morning everybody and welcome to our Friday morning coffee chat. Rod here with you from the Learn to Paint Academy. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Rod. I'm the founder of the Learn to Paint Academy, and this is our regular Friday morning coffee chat and Q&A session, which is really an opportunity for you to get all your questions on painting, learning to paint, etc. answered, even the business side of art. And we'll take our time and get everyone's questions answered. So welcome to everybody who's just joining us. I hope you've got your coffee at the ready or whatever you drink. Pardon me. And I hope you've got your questions ready as well. Just while we wait for people to get on board, if you let us know whereabouts you're tuning in from, that would be terrific. And we'll get underway. Good morning, Karen. Beautiful evening in Colorado. And you're eating your dinner. Very good. Good to have you join us, Karen. And where else are we here? Morning, Sharon. Got my coffee and my ears turned on. Good on you, Sharon, in New Zealand. G'day, Becky. Becky's having severe thunderstorms in Oklahoma. Hope I don't lose the power. We do too. Morning, Sonia in Melbourne. Lockdown. Yes, we'll have a little bit of an update about that. Morning, Rosalie in Dargo and Tatiana in South Florida. Welcome. G'day, Gail in Georgia and Foxy in Geelong. Sajada in Nevada. Welcome. Pardon me. Manju in Ontario, Canada. Sunny but cold day. Nice. G'day, Gail in Geelong. Pardon me. Hi, Janet in Fort Wayne, Indiana. How are you? Gail had a fast shower, blowing in off the bite there, I'm sure. Now, just excuse me for 1 second. Sorry about that. Where are we up to? G'day, Cherie in Texas. Welcome. Ready for a pink-orange sunset. That sounds nice. Who saw the blood red moon in Australia? I don't know if it was around the world, but it was pretty amazing. G'day, Marg in Bendigo. Yes, hopefully 1 week, but who knows. G'day, Cheryl in Mathara and Celine in Ontario. Welcome. Hey, Linda, British Columbia. Welcome. And over on Facebook, we've got g'day Yvonne in Western Australia. Good to see you. Morning, Chrissy in Wollongbar. It's sparkling this morning. That sounds good. Morning, Shelley in West Yorkshire, UK. Thanks for staying up. G'day, Peter. How are you, mate? Batcha, g'day. Andrea, good morning. G'day, Ann, good morning. Northern Ontario. Morning, Mary in Ireland. And thank you to you folks in Ireland and the UK for staying up. I greatly appreciate it. Morning, Ron. And sorry, it's just jumping around a little bit here. Hi, Gail in Wyoming. Welcome. And Sandy in Ontario. And Patricia in Wisconsin. Welcome. G'day, Tracy in the Bay and Terry in WA. Welcome. Yvonne said, I saw the blood red moon, but it was blurred by the clouds. Oh, we had a clear night here. Lots of great photos coming out of the Sunshine Coast for it. Morning, Barbara in Mornington. Yes, lockdown. It's going to affect us, I think. Morning, Jenny on the Gold Coast. Welcome. G'day, Beryl in Greenvale, Queensland. Good to see you. And good to see you all. If you're over on YouTube and watching, then welcome. We haven't quite got the stream working properly on YouTube yet, but we'll work on that in the future. So yeah, good to see you all. Good to see you all. Hang on 1 sec. Manju says no audio or video on the website, switching to Facebook. Okay, you might have to refresh your browser there, Manju. G'day, Barb in British Columbia. Welcome. Oh, Barb, we've sent out your painting too. Barb was the winner of our major prize draw from the recent Unleash the Artist Within challenge. So Barb's painting is on the way. Those of you who won the secondary prizes, we are in the process of getting those sent out. I've got to go and buy some postal tubes and things, so we'll get those out to you early next week sometime. So stay tuned for those. G'day Janelle, and morning Winnie, cold morning in Melbourne. Morning Julie in New Zealand, welcome. And Magdalene in Hobart, welcome. All right, well, a couple of little updates. I've got a couple of things just to show you as an update. For those in Melbourne in the workshops, I know this doesn't affect everyone, but stay tuned because you've gone into a 7-day lockdown. We've got our workshops coming up at the end of June. I'm not overly optimistic that we'll be able to hold the workshops, but we'll hold off until the end of this current lockdown period. Fingers crossed, but I don't want to get into a scenario where, you know, the workshop itself would be compromised because we can only have so many people, or, you know, all of that. So stay tuned. I will give you an update at the end of the 7-day lockdown period. If it looks like it's going to roll on further, then we'll probably have to either cancel it or postpone it to a later date, and we'll work through that with the venue and so on. So stay tuned for that. If you are booked in for one of our 2 Melbourne workshops, or both, as I know many of you did book in for both, unavoidable, unfortunately. Not much we can do about that. My pleasure, Barb. Looking forward to you getting, hopefully you'll like the painting. So that's the first thing that I want to update you with. And the second thing is, thanks everyone who joined us in the Unleash the Artist Within challenge. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I absolutely loved it, and I'm kind of missing it in a way. And even though it was a lot of work, you know, but I really enjoyed how much you guys got involved and got engaged in the process. And I love seeing all your photos of all your work and everything like that. It was awesome, and I really just want to give, you know, a round of applause, pat yourself on the back to everybody who took part and actively got engaged and had to go at the painting projects. I know they weren't really that easy. So, you know, I just thought it was a brilliant experience, and looking forward to doing it again soon. I had mentioned October or so, but, you know, maybe we'll do it sooner than that, especially if I can't end up going to Melbourne, then, you know, June, July maybe is a possibility. We'll see. I'm not going to commit to anything just yet, but I thought it was awesome. So I just wanted to show you, and hopefully you guys thought it was awesome as well, right? Hopefully. But I just want to show you. Here we go. Don't panic. It's just my laptop's going to sleep. I don't want to show you that one just yet. Yeah, so I mentioned that I would do a video or something of all the photos. It's proving to be more challenging than what I thought it would be, because there was over 600 photos of you guys doing your work. So then I thought I'll put up a photo gallery on my website, right? And even that was challenging because it crashed my computer trying to upload 600 photos. So now I'm thinking about doing individual, like doing maybe half a dozen pages and splitting the photos up. I've done one as a test, and I'll just sort of quickly show this to you. And it's just sort of shapes the photos to suit the size and so on. And I think it's just a great sort of little reference, especially if, like, somebody who's finding the Learn to Paint Academy for the first time, or somebody who's just who's just starting out and thinking, I might have a go at painting, right? And not sure whether they can or not. To see so many people just like them who, you know, have got great results, I think will help and inspire other people, right? So you can actually click on the photos and so on. So I've done about 100 on here so far, and I'll probably end up splitting it up over 6 pages, so you can see all your beautiful faces there. We're going to have to work on smiles though, aren't we? There's a few people who don't know how to smile. Oh, there's a couple of lovely smiles. I think that's Liz. And Peter he did one smile for us during the challenge. I think that's Dawn, got a lovely smile. And Dorinda there. And Teresa, I think it is, in Las Vegas. So yeah, we've got a few smiles, that's nice. So I kind of like this. as a Madeline in Hobart, and Julie in New Zealand, and yeah, I kind of like this as an idea. Oh, there you go. Jenny in the Gold Coast is smiling. Look at that for a smile. Beautiful. I like this as an idea. I just can't get it all onto one page, unfortunately, so it's going to end up being half a dozen pages to split up the photos. But still, I think it's good to have that record there so people can go back and look at it and to inspire others. And then the other thing I just wanted to show you is if you come to our main website here at the Learn to Paint Academy, then there is another section here which a lot of you guys wrote a little review for us, right? And I just wanted to show you that where that lives now. So if you go to our learntopaint.academy page, and then you go to the About section here, okay, you can come down here and it's reviews. And so I've just, everyone who submitted the review through the Unleash the Artist Within challenge, they've now been added to this page here. So if you want to go through and read what all the nice things that people have said, then you can do that here. Right. So thank you very much to everybody who left a review here. So if you want to leave a review for the Learn to Paint Academy or the Unleash the Artist Within challenge and you haven't done, then just come to this page and you can see this second line here. Do you want to leave a review? Click here to leave a review. And there's a little form you can fill out there. So again, that's just a way of helping new people who find us or who decide they want to have a go at painting. It's a way of helping them get a bit of confidence and inspire them to do that. So just wanted to thank everybody who has done that, right? Then the other thing is the Artist Business Academy. I haven't really officially announced this yet, but I will do soon. There's a little holding page there on the front of the website, which is artistbusiness.academy, www.artistbusiness.academy. You can add your email there to the notification list. If you're interested in going on and selling your art at some point or building a business around your art, then go to artistbusiness.academy, add your email address in there, and you'll be put on the notification list. And for those who took up the Start Selling Your Art that we talked about during the Unleashed Challenge, I can show you that we're working on the first little part of the content there, Module 1 and so on. We won't have all of Module 1 ready by Monday, but the rest of it will be. There'll be a few lessons and then we'll just keep adding to it. So we'll be emailing everybody out about that today. It'll be very exciting. So look out for that if you have registered for the Artist Business Academy. Alrighty, so just a couple of little updates from me. And we'll throw it up into questions in just a moment. But let me just make sure I've seen everyone's comments here. Morning Marg in Bendigo, welcome. G'day Peter, guess we won't see you in New Zealand anytime soon. Probably not, Peter. I'm thinking it's probably back to a year or two's time. Morning Serena in Greenmount, welcome. Batya says it was a fantastic challenge, thoroughly enjoyed it, good on you Batya. And also a big welcome to everybody who joined us as a life member through the challenge as well. It's great to have all you guys who've joined us. Shelley says the challenge was fabulous, loved it. Thanks, Shelley. Bonnie says, good morning, Rod, at Camberwell, Queensland. I don't know where that is. Have a go at painting the Camberwell Billabong today. Awesome. Look forward to seeing it, Bonnie. G'day, Colin, how are you? After 8 paintings at Lennox Heads, I'm heading south. Fantastic, Colin. Safe trip home, mate. Celia says, same here in Jamaica. Chris said, I enjoyed the challenge very much. I learnt so much and I joined as a life member. Good on you, Chrissy. Welcome. Also received a commission, which both terrified and excited me. That's exciting, isn't it? So well done. That's great. Morning, Diane in the Gold Coast. Welcome. Morning, Celia. You might have answered this already, but can you do a tropical seascape? We could potentially do one at some point in the future, Celia. Yeah. Pauline says she loved the 5-day challenge. Good on you, Pauline. G'day Tanya in Canberra, welcome. And g'day Valerie in Bow Desert. Fog this morning in Bow Desert, I bet there was. Now where are we up to here? Hey Beverly in Ontario, welcome. Hey Donna in Canada, welcome to you. Morning Diane in Saskatchewan, welcome. I think I get tripped up on it all the time. Julie said, that's great. Love the happy faces. Me too. I love to see, because otherwise they're just like names, you know, and we see that on the chat, but it's good to actually see people's faces and holding their artwork. I really enjoy that. G'day, Diane. Very good idea, says Diane. Morning, Laurel. How are you? Travelling to Young and taking lots of photos. Fantastic. Good on you, Laurel. And where are we up to here? I'll throw it open for questions in just one moment. Sonia said, hey Rod, better to be safe. Yes, regarding Melbourne web workshops. Sujata said she enjoyed the Unleashed the Artist Challenge very much. Good on you, Sujata. Gail said you did a great job. Oh, good on you, Gail. So did everyone else. Sonia said it'd be awesome to do another challenge. Well, I'm going to do a little mini challenge, well, maybe more of a workshop actually, in June for anybody interested in the business side of art, selling your art, which I know is not everyone. So we'll do a little workshop, which will run over 3 or 4 days. So look out for that in sort of early to mid-June. And then if I don't end up going to Melbourne for the workshops, then we'll roll into another, we'll call it the Unleash the Artist Within Challenge number 2, right? We'll do it like a movie franchise. Linda said it would be fun. Mark said, love the Unleash Challenge. Terrific. Linda says it was awesome. Thank you, Rod. Terrific. Manju said the same. Celine said, I love the challenge. I have absolutely been unleashed. Look out. Celine's been unleashed. That's awesome. Becky said the challenge was amazing. Meryl said, just made it. Slept in. Good on you, Meryl. Sonia said the challenge is to smile. Yeah, it's going to be the great smile off challenge. Okay. I'm going to throw it up into questions. So feel free to start typing in your questions. Cindy said, enjoying the content in Learn to Paint Academy from Ontario. Good on you, Cindy. Great to have you join us. Yeah, so if you have questions, so you can ask questions about anything to do with painting, learning to paint, what we do at the Learn to Paint Academy, the More Method of Painting, the business side of art, anything you want to ask at all, I'm happy to answer. Now, if I know the answer, right? If I feel like I've got something to contribute. If I don't, I'll let you know, or I'll go and research it and let you know. Morning, Dawn. How are you? I love the challenge. Thank you for your great life membership price. My pleasure, Dawn. Glad to have you join us. Gail said, could we do a remoir? We don't normally do copies. However, it has occurred to me that at some point I'm going to do maybe a 4 or 5 part copying the masters type of course, which will be in the members area of the Learn to Paint Academy. I don't know that I would do it on a public live stream, but yeah. So it's not on the immediate plans though. Serena said, I cannot stop painting. Love your method. Oh, good on you, Serena. That's great. Peter said, the challenge also kicked my lazy marketing butt. Less than a week in and first sale on the board. Good on you, Peter. Peter's up and running already. That's awesome, mate. Well done. That's following on from the sale you made at the art show as well, which is good. Chrissy's been at Lennox Heads taking photos. Some great photo opportunities around there. G'day Owen, how are you? In Ottawa, Canada. I'm working on your coffee cup tutorial. Having fun practicing. Oh, good on you, Owen. That's great, mate. Actually, we did something similar on our Wednesday live stream. We did the bowl, which has the ellipse there as well. Morning, Mary. How are you in Ireland? G'day Owen said, I've decided to try water mixable oils and bought regular linseed oil by mistake. Oh. Can I use it with my new WMO oil paints, and what other mediums to use? You can use it with that, but it will stop them being usable with water mixable oils. So you need to get water mixable oil mediums, and you want to look at the brand of paint you've got and get the medium specific to that brand. G'day Deidre. It says, hi Rod, I'm using the paint you recommended, interactive, and don't know what to varnish this paint with. The painting looks dull. I just use a spray varnish, just a regular gloss spray varnish, and that'll bring the colours up. acrylic paints tend to dry a little bit flat and dull looking. So when you varnish them with a spray varnish, then that will bring the colours out. But what I've started using recently is a retouch varnish spray, because if you use that and then you want to change something later on, you can work back over it. So yeah. So the other option is, if you're using interactive acrylics, you can get a medium, like a gloss medium, and you can mix that in, and that'll give you more of a glossy finish and maybe pick the colours up. But just double check, because I think that might then destroy the interactive component where you can rehydrate it. So you'd have to double check that on their website. So it says, also, could we get a tutorial on rocks and headlands? Well, we've done a few rocks and headlands, but you know, I guess we could, didn't we do, we actually did one in the challenge. The Torquay was kind of like that. But yeah, I guess we could. What brand varnish do you recommend? Look, this comes up a lot in our coffee chat. I don't really recommend any particular brand. I just buy whatever I see. So this one's, I mean, I've never even looked at the brand. Micador, it says. That's a satin varnish, right, spray. And this is the one I've got recently. Oh no, that's not it. But it's one like this, and it just says retouch varnish. But I really don't know what brand it is, to be honest. If you're in Australia, I got them off of Eckersley's website. If you're not, then maybe Dick Blick or Amazon would be the go. Bonnie says, when doing a wetland shape in your painting that has a mixture of water and grasses in the water, do you block it all as the water section first? I never think about it that way, Bonnie. I always think about it as darks to lights. So, you know, which probably means that the shadows in the grasses are going to be darker than the water. So I probably would be blocking that in first. So I never think about it in terms of what things to block in when. It's always setting up a value structure, dark through to light. And if you think about it that way, then you'll answer your own question on that one. Chrissy says, I'm at Wollongbar between Ballina and Lismore, if you're ever, oh, I think you're responding to somebody else possibly there. Serena said, show us how to paint your trees, please. I'm struggling. Well, we've done lots and lots of live streams where we've done trees and things like that in the past. There's tons of info, like painting projects in the members area that you can go through to learn how to do the trees. Trees are just an object, right? In the same way that painting a cube is an object, and each object or element in a painting has a, in order to give it form and dimension, needs to have a dark side, a middle value, and a light value, right? And the thing with trees, it's about shape, getting the shape right, and it's the outer edge that's important. So if you get the three values in there, the right shape and the outer edge, that's all you need to know about painting trees. But isn't that true of everything that we paint, right? Pretty much. Batty says, can you do a class, please, on the little things we add to landscapes and seascapes, small boats? At some point, Batty, yeah, but, you know, the little details at the end, I think, account for such a small part of a painting's success. I really do. You can't fix a bad painting with details. So my focus is on getting the 80% part of what makes a painting work right, and that's what I tend to focus in on. And if you can figure out how to paint those, then the little details come anyway. But if you are looking for that type of information in the acrylic painting techniques course, or acrylic painting landscape techniques course, I think it's called, in the members area, I do some of those sort of little details. So Nell said, hey Rod, I've tried putting my email address in, but nothing seems to happen. There is no confirmation email. No, there is no confirmation email at this stage. What happens is it puts a little message at the top saying, thanks for registering. That's the only information you'll get at this stage, because we haven't launched the website yet. So it's really just putting your name on the notification list for when we go to launch. But thank you for doing that. Okay. G'day Diane in Borrowin, Queensland. Welcome. G'day Nobby. Jenny had to miss the challenge. That's a shame, Jenny. Good to see you back now. Laurel said, losing the signal. Okay, cheers, Laurel. Beverly said, should you varnish oil on canvas paper? I'm not sure what you meant by canvas paper. Do you mean like a pad with tear-off canvas sheets, which is effectively a canvas? Yes, would be the answer. But if it's paper, if it's actually paper rather than canvas, then not sure how, I don't know. I've never done it, so I'm not sure how it would hold up. Teresa said, feel blessed to be here with you all. Thank you so much, Rod, for giving us your time. My pleasure. I can't wait for the next challenge. Awesome. Question. I used a cheaper brush to seal a painting I did in 2016, one of my absolute favourites. The brush lost hairs and I couldn't get them all out. What type of brush is best for this? I don't know. I don't pay a lot of attention. So what were you doing with it? Was it varnishing it, was it? To seal a painting, so varnishing. I use spray varnish, so I don't have that problem. You could use a foam brush because you want to be fairly gentle with your varnishing. So a foam brush might do the trick. Yeah. Canvas paper for oil paint. Is that like the Art Spectrum? I don't know if you're in Australia or not, Beverly, but I know Art Spectrum have something like that. But look, as long as it's got a canvas component to it, then you should be able to use a varnish on it, no problem at all. I wouldn't think. But not being familiar with the product you're using. Yeah, I wouldn't put acrylics under glass unless you have a paper matting or a card matting. That's the only time you want to put anything under glass. I've got an oil painting here of Brian Cook's, which is under glass, but the way they framed it, it had a big mat around it, right? So, do oil paintings have to be varnished? No, they don't. Only varnish paintings, oil, acrylic, if you want to protect them, right? So varnish is just a sealant that goes over the top to protect it from dust and damage and things like that. If you're going to sell a painting or put it into a gallery, you should varnish your painting. The other thing about varnishing, it will bring the colours out a bit, both oils and acrylics. It will make the colours pop out a bit more. So it's not a bad idea too, but I hold off on varnishing them, or I used to, because I think one day I might go back and want to make a change to them. And if you varnish them, you can't really do that. But I've recently started using retouch varnish, which means you can go back in and work over the top. But yeah, you should varnish paintings to protect them mostly. Cherie says, do you find your dark mix works for all landscapes, or do you have other mixes for landscapes such as lush spring forests, multicoloured fall foliage, or serene ocean with light sailboats? It's a difficult question to answer. The dark that we mix, our darkest dark, usually exists in most landscapes, right? But if you've got a heavy fog, everything's greyed out, then there won't be a darkest dark. So you probably need to lighten it off into more of a grey tone. When you're talking about a lush spring forest, if you look into the shadows and the trees of a lush spring forest, you'll see a dark there, right? Now, it might have an orientation slightly towards the green, and this is why I teach people to mix their own dark rather than use black, so that you can learn how to push the dark towards the green, right? How would you push a dark towards green? Well, a dark's made up of our three primary colours, blue, red, yellow. To make it more a greenish dark, we would emphasise the blue and the yellow a little bit more, right? So, but if you go and look in a forest when there's sunlight, right? If it's a dull overcast day, probably not. But when there's sunlight, there's going to be shadows. There's going to be a shadow tone, a dark. There's going to be a middle tone, which might be a sort of a mid to dark green. And there'll be a highlight side where the light's clipping on it, as long as there's a source of light, okay? I'm not sure about the serene ocean with light sailboats. Depends on how close the sailboats are to us. If they're way off in the distance, then the darkest dark won't be appropriate. So you've got to make decisions about where to put your darkest darks, but pretty much every landscape I do, there's a dark in the foreground somewhere. So that's my starting point usually. Meryl said, is it the same varnish for oils and acrylics? Yes. On your video of varnishing, you say to use a foam brush for acrylics and spray for oils. I don't know why I said that. I do know why I said that. That was specifically with using interactive acrylic paints, right? Interactive acrylic paints, if you rehydrate them, they become reactive and the paint turns back into a liquid, okay? And I had this experience. I sold a painting and so I varnished it, and what happened was, as I was varnishing it using a spray varnish, it rehydrated the acrylic paint, and so the actual paint started to run down the painting, right? So that's why I probably mentioned to use a foam brush for acrylics, but only if you're using interactive. If you're not using interactive, you're using some other type of acrylic, then spray will be fine. So yeah, I pretty much use spray varnish. Morning, Margaret in Gosford. Cheryl says, I use Gamvar varnish. You can use it when the thickest part of your painting is hard and it can be removed safely. Good on you, Cheryl. That's a good tip. G'day, Rick. I'm heading up to the Pilbara in West Australia for 3 months. I'm looking forward to putting it into practice all I learned on Unleash the Artist. Fantastic, Rick. No, I've not been there, mate, but I'd like to get there. Enjoy that. That sounds like a great trip. Okay. Let me just come back here. Where are we up to here? Tracy says, with working with water-soluble oils, we'll be looking forward to mixing up more paint at the same time. Yes, absolutely. Mix more paint than you think you need. Shelley says, do you use synthetic or natural bristle brush hairs for water-soluble oils? Shelley, I started out, I used hog hair bristle brushes, natural brushes, and I used to use those for acrylics and for oils and everything. In recent times, I've modified my views for a number of different reasons, and I now use synthetic brushes, but I still have some hog hair bristle brushes around, which end up getting used. But I'm heading towards using only synthetic hair brushes. Right? They actually stand up a bit better in water, even though I never really had problems with the hog hair bristle brushes in water. But yeah, so I'm heading towards all synthetic. Gail says, how do you clean a 50-year-old oil painting that has been varnished? Gail, that's outside of my scope of expertise. I would take it to a really good framer or some sort of art historian and ask them. It's not something that I have done, or nor would I tackle it myself if it's a painting of value of any description. I would take it to somebody who is experienced in doing that. In fact, I was just down at a framer's down in the Gold Coast the other day, and he had a huge big painting that had been brought in, and he'd restored that for somebody, and part of that process was cleaning it. So Serena said, how can I store my little paintings I do on my acrylic pad I tear off as I go? How can I store them? Well, I mean, if they're just on pads, you could roll them up, maybe roll up half a dozen of them and put a rubber band around it, or you get a little shoebox type of thing and store them in there. I mean, they'd be the easiest thing to store. The harder thing to store is stretch system that works for you, and we're all going to be different with that. Peter said, if interactive is thoroughly dry, less likely to run. Yeah, so I think it takes about 1 to 2 weeks to dry out, and then it loses its interactive abilities, I believe. So you're correct there, Peter. Morning, Darlene. How are you? G'day, John. Nina said, you can't use natural hog hair for water soluble because if you use water with the paint, it will soften the brush too much. You need synthetic. Well, technically that's true, yes, and that's what the brochure will tell you. However, I used hog hair bristle brushes for acrylics, which is obviously water-based, and water-soluble oils for a number of years and never really had a problem. So I think it depends on the brush, the manufacturer, the quality of the hog hair, etc. But also, I haven't got one here to show you, but I actually don't mind the hairs spraying out a little bit. Like somebody asked about trees before. When you've got a brush where the hairs are sort of gone a bit crazy over time. Makes for fantastic edges for your trees. So yeah, technically you're correct, but my experience is that I've been able to use hog hair bristle brushes with acrylic and water mixable oils without any problems. Jenny said, Left Bank at Brickworks is a great framer. Oh, very good. I don't know that one. No, I was up at Mount Tambourine, or Tambourine Mountain. I can never remember which one it is. Okay. Any other questions, friends? Any other questions? Linda has said, what is the palette you use? Is it a board? Looks like it much easier to scrape and mix paint than the wet palette is, but with acrylics maybe not, as they dry out so quickly. Yeah, I use I haven't got it here, it's out in the other room, but I just use a sheet of MDF board, which I do have one of these. Oh, by the way, for those who didn't get to join us yesterday, we did an advanced live stream, which is in the recordings area, and we were talking about blocking in with acrylics and then painting over it with oils later on. And we just played around with making up some composition. But anyway, this is MDF board. Okay, this is one that I prepared with gesso for painting on. And I use a sheet of MDF board for my palette. In fact, I'll go grab it and I'll show you. Hang on one sec. One of the things I recommend when it comes to pallets is that you get a bigger one, right? So this is my palette that I use mostly. I take that with me if I go out plein air painting. It's just MDF board. You can still see it's got the sticker on it, right? And I don't even prepare it. I just put my paint out, start painting on here. And when I finish, I scrape it all back. I get some paper towel with water and I wash it down. And over time, it creates this nice film over it. And I find that's the best palette for me. You don't need a fancy palette. Now with acrylics, I don't know if I'd use that with acrylics. From our live stream yesterday, I was just using these tear-off pads. So, oops, that paint's still wet. Fab. Just go and find some paper towel, sorry about that. Yeah, so I just use those tear-off pads, and I've got a couple of them that I use. So that I give myself plenty of space to mix paint. Cherie has asked a question about in the Welcome to the Learn to Paint Academy course, the Learning Paths section. Yeah, we're still working on that because when we moved everything over from the old site to the new one, so we're still working on that, and we'll keep you posted when that's available for the Learning Paths. Yeah, Tatiana says, great idea for a palette. Mine's too small and I always run out of space. This is a problem I see over and over and over again. Students who come to our workshops, they have a little palette about this big, and then they trying to do a painting that's this big, and it just doesn't work. You need a nice big palette, and you need to consider your palette management. Where you put your paints, you put them in the same spot each time. You'll find that to be far more effective. Okay. Celia says, I use hog hair brushes with acrylics. Yes. That's all I ever used to use with acrylics. Shelley says, I haven't used water-soluble oils before, and I know you've mentioned this, but would you remind me about whether the colour changes? No, the advantage of oil is that the colour, there's no colour shift when they dry out. So it's a big advantage over acrylics if you want to work back into a dry painting, definitely. So there's no colour shift with oils. Michelle says, question, if you're using water mixable oils, can you use also regular oils in the same painting? You can, Michelle. If you start to mix regular oils with water mixable oils on your palette, then you will lose the advantage of the water mixable oils, which is that they can be mixed with oil. Because as soon as you introduce another paint into the mix that isn't designed to work with water mixable oils, you will, you'll just revert the WMOs back to traditional oils, basically. Yeah, but you can do it. In fact, I know of one artist, a very well-known artist, and she squeezes out both traditional oils and water mixable oils, and she just uses them as regular oils. Shelley said, regarding pallets for acrylics, I'm using a small sheet of glass just because I had it with a wet paper towel under sketch paper. It keeps the paint hydrated for longer. Sketch paper isn't ideal, but I get more mileage out of the paint. Yeah, that's a common way of doing it, Shelley. I used to do something similar. I had these plastic trays, they were about this big, and I'd have 2 of them, and I'd put down paper towel, just some paper towel, right? I'd lay down a couple of layers of paper towel, and then I'd pour water over that, and then I'd put baking paper over the top and then tape it down. And I'd use that, right? So yeah, that what you're using would be perfectly fine. Tracy said, doing my MDF boards now as I'm watching you. Watch your class on how to. Really helped so much. Really enjoy being a member. Good on you, Tracy. It's a nice, cost-effective way to get painting surfaces, and they're easier to store than stretch canvas. John says, one artist who paints in oils has an old door that he uses as a palette. There you go. That's another idea. You have to have a larger studio though. Dawn said, it was good to see the size of your palette. Looks smaller in the lives. I thought I was putting down a good amount of paint, but now realise I was working with a palette that's way too small. Very good. Yes, that's a good point that it does look different in the lives, definitely. Teresa says, for acrylics, I use parchment paper and tape it to a hard surface I can tear away and discard. Yeah, good idea, Teresa. Yeah, it's good to be able to use like a tear-off palette of some kind because you can clean up a lot easier. Where are we up to here? Lynn says, oh, in Currumbin Waters. Welcome, Lynn. Judy says, I had a go with water mixable oils over acrylic blocking, loved it, but I need to get better quality WMOs. Oh, that's good, Judy. I mean, that's what we were talking about basically yesterday. So you can see this, I've blocked this in with acrylic very roughly. I sort of made the composition up as we went, and we were chatting and stuff at the time. I did really rough and really loose. But then we're going to come back and we're going to put some oil paints over this and start to develop it up into a finished painting just purely for experimentation purposes. But I'm glad to see you're having a go at that. Cindy says, have you painted plein air with acrylics? Would think drying too fast a problem. I have, Cindy. I've painted with acrylics plein air. I know other artists who do. You want a spray bottle so you can rehydrate and keep your palette rehydrated. But it's not ideal. So, you want to use lots of paint so that you've got thick paint so it's not drying out as fast. So, yeah, I've done it. I wouldn't do it again in a hurry. Mind you, the last time I did it, I just recently sold the paintings, so maybe that's telling me something. Rick says, are you planning on coming over to WA any time for a course? Rick, there's been a number of attempts. Last year, around about this time, I was meant to be in WA with Jackson Drawing and Art Supplies. I was going to do 11 different workshops in all their stores, and with COVID that got put off. And then I was just talking to them again recently, and we were about to start replanning that. And then about a week after we started talking again, Queensland went into lockdown, and we decided to postpone it until next year sometime. So it's definitely in the works. 11 workshops in all their stores there, but it's really until the whole COVID thing settles down, we're not going to entertain the idea. So, but as soon as it's clear, of course, we'll put that into play. Manju says, if you do the blocking with acrylics and the rest in WMO, would you call it a WMO painting or a mixed media? I'd just call it an oil painting. I wouldn't even call it a WMO painting. I'd just call it an oil painting. Because the vast majority of it, 80%, 90% of it will be oil paint, okay? I'm just using the acrylic blocking just to rough out an idea. That's all I'm doing. So, so you just call it an oil painting. Jan says, a picture-perfect day on the Gold Coast. Fantastic. Got to love that. Patricia says, I have a piece of MDF with a hard, shiny white side and a smooth brown side. Have you seen that before, and is it prepared the same? Yeah, so some MDF board does have a shiny white side that's usually used for things like kitchen cabinets and things like that. So I never buy that. I just buy raw MDF board. Okay. So yeah, you could probably use it as your pallet. Use the brown side, which is the raw side, but I wouldn't particularly be using it to sell or to create finished work. Did you say what size your pallet is? No, I didn't. I don't know, is it important? It's that big by that big. Let me go and find my tape measure. I think what you want to do is find the biggest piece you can get that fits into your studio, so that you're not there'd be no point, if you're painting on the kitchen table, you don't want to have something this size, I wouldn't think. But let's have a look. So it is 24 inches or 60 centimetres by, don't put that in the paint rod, by 14.5 inches or 37 centimetres. There you go. It was just an offcut that I cut part of it off to use for packaging, and that became my pallets. So. Cherie says, fun tip for grandkids. I save my dried acrylic pallets, cut them up in odd shapes and let my kids create their own abstract pictures with glue. What a great idea. Thank you for sharing that. All right, any other questions? Any other questions for me? If you do have questions, fire away. Just going to find something here to show you. No, can't find it, not to worry. We'll save it for the next time. All right, any other questions that you'd like answered? Lynn says, Rod, I was losing a lot of paint, so I started scrapping the clean paint and putting them in small containers. They say stay soft, so I use them when I'm blocking in. Yeah, fantastic idea. Thanks, Lynn. I've mentioned this idea a couple of times. You can buy these on eBay. These are empty paint tubes. So you can scrape up your palette, you can poke them in here and fold that over, and that'll keep them as spare paint. So typically what I would do is scrape up a whole lot of paint and mush it up into a grey, and then have a few different versions of grey in there. So that's a good tip, Lynn. Thank you. When is my next plein air workshop? Well, I haven't got one planned at this stage, Deidre, because I've got I'm waiting on an appointment with a radiation oncologist, and I've got to start radiation treatment. So depends on when that's going to be. So I'm not planning any other workshops until I've got a plan for that, and that's going to take a couple of months at least. So potentially July, August, September, in that range, I'll be out of action. And so therefore the next plein air workshop, or any workshops apart from what's already scheduled, will be happening after that. So I'm still waiting for, working out all the dates and everything for all of that. Rowena says, I'm starting with the colour blending course and am learning a lot of things I didn't think about, such as the different yellows mixed with blue makes different shades of green. Fantastic. I'm learning a lot, enjoying the lessons very much. I noticed when you talked about putting the paint on the palette, you put the colours in a line instead of in drops of paint. Is this your go-to? Yeah, I try and put my paint out like that so that you can cut bits off the end. If it's all in one big blob and you've got other colours on your brush, then when you dip into that, you're going to dirty up your colours. So I try and put it out in a line if I can. So I'm glad you're enjoying the course, Rowena. There's a bonus video in the colour mixing course which is all about mixing greens, and I show you lots of different shades of green that you can get from just a few colours. So make sure you watch that one as well. Gail said, what do you think of gluing canvas sheets from a pad onto MDF board? Well, it's a possible thing, and I know a lot of artists who do that. It's just more work. It's a lot more work, but you can certainly do it. Now, if you're painting on canvas sheets or even loose canvas of any type, and you do a painting that you want to frame, then yes, definitely glue it to an MDF board. If you're doing it just for painting practice, it's a lot of extra work. I mean, why not just prepare MDF boards with some gesso? That would be my advice, or just paint on loose canvas. But if you're going to get them framed, then they do want to go onto an MDF board, glued down. But I'd get my framer to do that if you're using a framer. Deidre says, I have some tubes of paint that has dried out. Can I crush it up and use it? Deidre, I don't know the answer to that question. I've not done it myself. I'm kind of the personality that I'd just throw it out and get some more paint. But all I can say is give it a try. But what the part that's probably dried out is the linseed oil. So is it oil paint that you've got? If it's oil paint, then just get some linseed oil. Try and break open the tube and get the pigment out and mush it all up, and then put some linseed oil and mix it, and that might revive it. I don't know, but that's the approach I would take if I was to do that. Colin said, when you block in with acrylics and paint with oil pastels, what would you varnish with? I'm not sure what you mean by oil pastels, Colin, but look, I varnish with the same stuff all the time. It's just a spray varnish. I use that for acrylics and oils. I don't use pastels, but if you're using pastels, you probably need to use a fixative, I think, if you pastels on paper. But I'm not sure what you mean by oil pastels, I'm afraid, Colin. Dawn said we're praying. Oh, thank you, Dawn. Appreciate that. John said I use matte framing for those. You're answering to somebody else, okay. Julia, hi Rod, I'm new here and have joined up. I didn't realise you were not well. Sorry to hear that. Thanks, Julia. Great to have you join us as a member. Really appreciate it. Teresa said, I love the caption as you speak. How do you do that? Not art related, but quite fantastic all the same. I'm not sure what the caption is, Teresa. Not sure what you mean. It's not something that I'm doing, so maybe you've got. I don't know what you mean. I'm sorry. Unless it's creating like closed captions. How many sprays do I give a painting to varnish it? 2 or 3, Valerie. 2 or 3. Is the colour mixing course? Yeah, you need to be a paying member to access the colour mixing course. So you can become a monthly member, which is $29 a month. So that'll give you full access to all of our courses. Subtitles are running under the video. Well, unbelievable. I didn't know. That must be something that Facebook are doing, and I can't see it on my screen at all. So, so it must be something that Facebook are doing. Anyway, hopefully they're coming out well. I've got a few other questions coming through here. Manju said, who is the young gentleman on the ABA website? It's just a stock photo. There are websites you can go to buy photos to use for commercial purposes, so it's just a stock photo, so I don't know who he is. Meryl said, I know galleries like the D-hooks now, but what about the string wire? Picture wire seems too thin for larger paintings. Well, yeah, larger paintings you have to maybe loop the wire around twice. I've done that a couple of times. D-hooks are good for gallery hanging systems, but yeah, for a large painting, you just need to have the wire looped around a couple of times rather than just run across once. But there's different grades of wire that you can get. So if you get a thicker grade, that's probably important as well. Becky says, what do you think about painting on mixed media paper? I quite enjoy it, Becky. I think there's, for different purposes. So I like to play around with some abstract type of ideas. and I use mixed media, so I use acrylic and crayon and charcoal and stuff like that, pencil. So I'll use mixed media paper. Yeah, I like it. If you're thinking about selling, then oil paints are always the easiest to sell and tend to typically get a higher price, especially when you get up in price range. Meryl says, what sort of glue would you use to stick canvas onto a board? Meryl, that's a question I really don't know. We could probably look that up on YouTube or somewhere, but because I don't do it, I did it once, and it's just too much mucking around for my liking, so I don't typically do it. But maybe if we Google or YouTube that, we'll find the answer. Mark says, do you try and cut your MDF boards to the size of existing frames, or do you get frames individually made for each painting? Now, this is a really good question, Mark. So I used to, I don't know where you're located, Mark, if you're in Australia or not, unless that's Marg in Bendigo. But I used to get my boards cut in a place called Bunnings. So everyone in Australia knows Bunnings. They're a big hardware store. For those who aren't in Australia, they're a massive, big retail hardware store. They're huge, right? And they're all across Australia. And so I used to go in there and I would get the sheets of MDF board, and they have a cutting service and they'd cut them up. The problem is, what I'd find is, let's say, because what I used to do is I'd go and buy ready-made frames, say 8 inches by 10 inches. In fact, I've got one here. I'll show you. So I used to buy these in lots of 100 of these at a time, right? This is when I used to sell on eBay. So I'd buy these ready-made frames, 8 by 10, whoops, okay. And then I'd go to Bunnings, the big retail hardware store, and get them to cut me 8 by 10s, right? The problem is they don't really give a rat's, if you know what I mean. They don't have a high level of care in their work. And they would always tell me we have to allow a margin for tolerance. In other words, their laziness to cut it accurately, right? And so I'd end up with these boards that were almost 8 by 10. Sometimes they were bigger, sometimes they were smaller, and they'd never quite work with my frames, right? And that was annoying as all hell. So you've got to be careful with that. I've just recently, for those who saw my recent post on Facebook, let me just fix this while I chat. I did a little post recently, a couple of days ago, where I found an actual timber company that supplies the building industry. So I managed to get a wholesale timber company, and I got 300 boards made up. And when I measured them, they were exactly the size I asked for, right? I never ever got that at Bunnings or any retail type outlet. But this timber manufacturer, cut them exactly the right size. So what that means is it gives me confidence now to turn around and go and buy, 50 frames ready-made for that purpose, right? So you just got to be really careful as you work through that. One of the ideas I've got, it's not going to happen immediately, but is to start my own ready-made framing business where we make up frames like the one I just showed you, and you buy, a box of 10, but we put into that the MDF board, gessoed, ready to go. So that's an idea I'm still thinking about, just to add to my list of ideas. Okay, so I hope that whoever that asked that question, I hope that answers the question. Cheryl says, do you lightly sand the shiny side of MDF board before you start the prime? I don't have a shiny side on my MDF board. I only buy MDF board that is just raw timber on both sides, right? So if you're getting one that's got a shiny white side, that's used more for cabinetry type stuff. I wouldn't use that. Sujata says the lid that screws onto one of my oil painting tubes is broken. That happens all the time, and I always have problems screwing them back on. It happens all the time, yeah. Lynn says, eucalyptus oil will remove acrylic paint and water drops off desktop wash. Okay, that's a good tip. Thanks, Lynn. Meryl says, I'm not getting subtitles. Well, you won't be getting them if you're in the members area. I think this is a Facebook, for those people who are watching over on Facebook. Meryl says, I have some loose canvas. Can I just paint on it loose and take it to the framer? Yes, you can, Meryl. Absolutely. A lot of artists paint on loose canvas. Where are we up to? Michelle's asked, what is the ABA website address again? It's artistbusiness.academy if you just want to add your email to the email list. If you want to watch the replay of the seminar we did, I'll pop that in the comments here in just one moment. In fact, contact our support if you want to watch the replay video of that. Jenny says she loves Bunnings. I do too. The only problem with Bunnings is that they're not very good at cutting MDF board. And it's always a problem. So artistbusiness.academy. If you want to watch the replay, then contact our support desk and we'll give you the link. Do you have to spray all paintings? No, I only varnish the paintings I'm going to sell or put in a frame or hang up on the wall. The others, I don't bother varnishing them. Especially if they're ones that I'm not convinced are good paintings. Thank you, Gail. Appreciate that. Julia, I was diagnosed with cancer a couple of years ago, and it's been stable for a few years, but it's now become not so stable, so that's the reason why. Bonnie says you can turn off captions, go to the top right-hand corner. There you go. Didn't even know they put them in there. Can you show us a sample of your abstract work? At some point in the future, but it's really just for me, just playing around with. I think probably eventually I'll end up an abstract artist. For a number of different reasons, which I won't go into now, but I think in the long term, my painting career, like thinking about me painting and selling, I'm probably going to end up an abstract artist in the long term. I'm talking 10, 15 years time, or maybe even 5 years, depending, right? So, but yeah, so at the moment I just play around just for a bit of fun, and I don't really produce any finished work. So, Shelley says, do you have any of your mixed media work that you'd be able to show us? I have shown some in the past in my little sketchbook, but so maybe we'll do that another time. Dawn says, how do you attach your gessoed MDF boards to the large backing board? Well, with blue tack. Here. So the blue tack there. So I just stick blue tack in the corners and then squeeze it on. And it stays fairly stable, although this one fell off, but these fell off overnight. These two have stayed up there, so that's how I do it on that backing board. Pauline said, you were full of good ideas. The framing with gesso boards is brilliant. Yeah, it is. It's just, I need more. I don't have a big enough studio. It's always the way, isn't it? If this studio was double the size, I'd go and buy all the framing equipment and I'd be busy manufacturing ready-made frame kits to sell to artists because it's so hard. It's different in the US and Canada. I don't know about the UK, but if you're in the US and Canada, you've already got this available to you. Just go to Dick Blick's and look at their plein air frames, and they're brilliant. I'd love to be able to get my hands on those. Just can't get them at an effective price here in Australia. And the reason why I'm full of good ideas is because, these are needs that I have, that I've been looking for a solution to for my own painting, right? It's not something I dreamt up. It's because for years I've been searching in Australia for ready-made frames of good quality, but I just can't find them. Hey, Winnie, how are you? Kathy said, is there a WMO that you recommend in the US? Winsor & Newton Artisan brand is what I'd recommend. Or, if you've got a bit more of a budget, the Cobra, okay? Cobra water mixable oils. They're the best quality ones I've tried. But a slightly cheaper version is the Winsor & Newton Artisan brand. They're pretty readily available. Patricia says, does Learn to Paint Academy have a logo to put a shortcut on the desktop? Well, we've got a little bit of a logo. If you go to learntopaint.academy, there's a little logo up in the top left-hand corner there. So I don't know if that helps answer your question, Patricia. Karen said, if on Facebook there is a gear button, okay, that's the captions. I'll let you guys work that out. Thanks, Julia. Chrissy said, I brought my MDF board home from Bunnings so I can supervise my lovely husband when he cuts it for me. He's a bit of a perfectionist, so that's a big advantage. If he's got the equipment to be able to cut it up, then yeah, do it yourself. How do you dispose of WMO? Can you wash it down the sink? I leave it I have a water bucket, and I let the water dry out and evaporate, and then it just becomes a sediment or a powder, and then just put it in the rubbish bin. Yes, that's true, Valerie. Still not enough room because I've got more and more ideas, right? My brain operates on expansion, so therefore I'll probably never have a big enough studio. We are actually looking at, there's some factories being built down the road which are double the size of this, and we're looking at potentially buying one, so we'll find out soon. G'day, Catherine in Michigan. Welcome. Okay, where are we up to here? Mark says, I was going to try Bunnings for MDF. Are you able to share the tip? The company I used was called Plein Masters. They're in Brisbane, so it'd probably be a bit expensive to get it couriered down. What I did was I just searched in Google for wholesale MDF boards or sheets in my local area, right? And that's what I recommend you do. Actually, there is a company in Footscray, so reasonably close. Now this is going back 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know if they're still there, but they're in Footscray area, and they're a framing shop in the front, but out the back they've got piles of pre-cut MDF board, and I used to go and buy a carload from them. So I don't know the name, so don't ask me. It was 6 years ago or more, but they were pretty good to use. You'd have to send me a photo, Cheryl. I'm not really sure what's causing that issue for you. Cherie said electrical hardware wire twist for moldable. Okay, there you go. There's a tip for you for that. I'm an ideas man, I am, which is both a blessing and a curse. Thank you, Lynn. Appreciate that. Manju says the logo LTPA comes up when you pin the website on your favourites bar. There you go. Manju's given us a great tip there. I had no idea that you could do that. What thickness MDF board? 3mm is the standard sort of thickness. When are you having your treatment? Well, I'm still waiting for an appointment to work out a treatment plan, so not sure. Teresa said, one more from me. I've written my book and so happy the ending will include my journey into the painter's world. I'm wondering, is it okay to use your name? If you feel that's appropriate, then feel free to. Yeah, absolutely. Catherine said, I sent a note to ask for width of the MDF board. 3mm is what I use. There you go. It's about that thick. I'm not sure how that converts into inches, but it's the thin one, right? And the reason why you want the thin one is if you get ready-made frames or you go to the framer, okay, they put these flexi pins in here. Can you see that? And they usually pin them for a 3mm size, okay? So 3mm is the best. If you're doing something bigger, you could go to 6mm, but then it starts to become too heavy. So yeah, stick with 3mm. All right, we're going to start wrapping up, friends, I think. Cheers, Karen. Appreciate that. Cindy said, just looked up Dick Blick. They have everything, even a chia pet Bob Ross. Becky says we need a chia pet Rod Moore. Yeah, go to their frame section and look at their plein air frames, and they're good prices, and they've got some really good moulds, and I'd love to get my hands on them, but the shipping to Australia just sort of ruins it, unfortunately. John, I'm not going on a trip at this stage, mate. Unless you're talking to someone else. Good on you, Peter. Thank you. Hope you've all got some ideas from today. And happy painting. We'll be back next week for our regular Wednesday live stream painting session, and we'll probably do another advanced one. We might even continue on our discussion that we had yesterday in the advanced, working on those, just playing around with ideas really, and of course Friday coffee chat next week as well. So hope you can join me for all of those. Otherwise I'll see you in the members area, and oh no, it's a truck. I thought it started raining. Yeah, so stay safe, especially you guys down in Melbourne. If you're in Melbourne, then our workshops, who knows? So we'll keep you posted with those. I'll hang on for 1 sec, folks. G'day, mate.
Hey, Rob Moore?
Yeah, that's me. Cheers. Thanks, mate. Sorry, everybody. I ordered some super shrooms. This is called the Friday coffee chat, but I try not to drink coffee. but as Peter noted, I recently started drinking coffee again because I'd run out of my super shrooms. So this is my preferred drink, and I'll get back onto it. All right, friends.